Hello and welcome back to our third episode of Casual Cosmic Conversations. My name's Alie. I'm joined here by Ray and Antonia. And what we do in these episodes is we bring up three popular topics that are going on right now, referenced with articles, and have a conversation about what we view is going on right now in the world and how we relate it back to what's going on astrologically about these events. So if you're ready, I'd like to dive right in today and start with our first conversation topic, that being the numerous retrogrades going on right now. So first article I'm gonna quote today is actually one of our own. If you don't mind, I'm going to start by quoting your words, Ray, from your
Okay.
free weekly column that you put out over this weekend. So I want to read this one quote to you, which hopefully is familiar because you wrote it. All right. It is not uncommon to see 1 to 3 planets retrograde at one time. 4 is not too unusual. 5 or more is considered a lot. Between August 28th through September 3rd, 6 planets will be retrograde. On September 3rd, Venus will turn direct, dropping it back to 5. However, the next day, September 4th, Jupiter will turn retrograde, making it 6 planets retrograde once again until September 15th, when Mercury turns direct. So, as a reader of that article, more than normal planets right now are retrograde. It seems unusual. What's going on? How unusual is this? And what can we expect when we see this many planets going retrograde at the same time?
Well, since I wrote it, I'll begin.
That's
When you have that many planets retrograde, the analogy I used was being a ship on the water. You're on a ship on the water, and the ship, is you, and the waves coming at you are the planets. And when they change directions, it's like the waves are changing direction. It's like the wind is changing direction. And so it creates a choppiness. And so you think you're going to go in this direction, but wait a minute, I have to rethink this. It's really probably not the best idea that I had. I better modify that idea. So you are modifying your ideas. You're modifying your thoughts about what you want to do. It's very choppy. It's like you're in turbulence right now because so many planets are changing directions, and 6 of them are actually retrograde right now, which is a lot. So given that geocosmic situation where there's so many retrogrades, this is probably not the best time to attach yourself to a goal, to an idea. It's a time to explore ideas and be willing to modify and revise them. It's like that ship on the sea. As the wind changes, as the waves change, you've got to constantly study your monitors and make adjustments so that your boat doesn't capsize. If you stay with the plan and realize, wait a minute, that's not what I want to do, or that's not the direction I want this to go into, you're at risk of hanging on to something that's not going to work, when really just a little bit of a tweaking and adjustments and revisions would put you back on course. And that's what probably needs to be the case, I think, until at least September 15th, when Mercury goes direct. Now, I think it's also interesting to note that of those planets we talked about, Venus is the one this change. I mean, it's going direct. The others are turning retrograde. And this is Antonia's specialty. I think she'll probably have some interesting thoughts to share with you about what was it like with Venus retrograde and what did we learn?
Oh my God.
Quite a bit.
It was quite a wild period, because Venus, during it was retrograde, it was in square, like an attention aspect to Uranus for a long time. So we did see many breakups in relationships, or many upheavals. Yesterday, I did a live stream and asked my followers what experienced, and they experienced really wild rides, including the fact that old loves come back, and some of them met somebody from their previous life and decided to start all over again. And others broke up, got back on, broke back up, got back on. I mean, really, it was a wild ride. And the interesting thing is that Venus now, as she's direct, is going through the same aspects one time again. But the good thing is, what I focus on is she's making a very charming aspect now with Mars. it's a sextile, it's friendship. It's like they're walking hand in hand. They're like dancing. And this aspect, they're like have the same speed right now. And that goes on until mid of October, even over their changing signs. Venus is going to go into Virgo and Mars is going to go in Scorpio, and they still they're going hand in hand. And that, to my theory, is the happy end, because that is the aspect that lasts the longest between Venus. She's going to go through a square to Jupiter, which goes with self-indulgence and high expectations. And then she has to go through that square with Uranus again.
Yes.
But she also makes a trine to Chiron. So one important thing is, and I experienced that for myself and also with many other people, all these upheavals had the chance for a healing. So there was some healing, some knowing, some revelations, and some healing in relationships, even though it was hard at times. So she's going through all that again, and so we can bring it to closure during September, and Mars and Venus are having this happy air about them.
Remember the last time that we met, though, with Casual Cosmic Conversations was when Venus went retrograde.
Right.
And we thought it'd be the summer of love. And it was
the summer of Barbie.
The summer of Barbie, the summer of love, and the summer of breakups.
Yes.
Old love's coming back, getting back together with your your mate, in a sense.
But
it's a rocky period.
I expected it to be hot, and even in the weather, there was a lot of weather chaos because it got steaming hot and then heavy rain. So we had these extremes.
That's right.
And right now, at least here in Germany, it calmed down quite a bit. It became friendly.
It's kind of normal and friendly and very pleasant. I like the way that you end it with the sextile.
Yeah.
I tend to think the sextile of Venus and Mars is the finest aspect between those two planets. I think
so
it's
too.
better in the
It's
conjunction,
great,
better in the
because it's
trine.
friendship.
Yeah.
Because friendship
That's right.
lasts the longest. Friendship lasts longer than
And it's
romance.
communications.
Yeah.
So we like the way this is going to go now through probably the end of the year in that regard.
So
I know it's very popular to hear people talk about, in mainstream Mercury retrograde and how it's a bad time for communication. And to newer listeners, can you talk a little bit about that key term, Mercury retrograde, what that means, because we're still in it now, is that right? What to be aware of, and how, I know you say, as you started off, it's a time where you don't want to be necessarily, communication, right? Wires get crossed. What else is a typical sign of something like Mercury retrograde, a term that other people have heard of?
Well, we consider Mercury retrograde the trickster, because you have data, you have information, you thought things out, and again, you think this is what I should do. But then you realize very quickly, I don't have all the data, or the data I have is not correct data. It's inaccurate data. So you have to backtrack. It's not that you have to give up your plans. It's just, again, you have to modify, you have to revise your plans. Your plans are probably pretty good because Mercury went retrograde around the same time Uranus did. And when Mercury and Uranus are highlighted, August 23rd and August 27th, and goes to at least September 15th, you're inspired. Mercury Uranus's inspiration is like discovery, it's like new ideas. It's probably ahead of its time. It's probably too early to embark upon those ideas, but they are good ideas. You just hold on to them and wait for the right time to present them to other people.
The great thing is, once Mercury turns direct again, it will make those aspects again. It will make great aspects to Jupiter and Uranus. So maybe then that's the time after September 15th to present your ideas. But until then, you have to, misunderstandings occur, or plans are having upheavals, or you come too late. I had a client saying I had problems sending emails because they had misspellings in the name. Little things like that occur more often than normal at this time.
And a lot of times I've noticed with myself, not a lot of times, occasionally I've got to be extra careful, because when I put an order in to buy something, I've clicked the wrong button. I hit sell. And all of a sudden I sold something I didn't want to sell. Or vice versa. I sold something when I wanted to buy more of it. So you got to pay attention. You can't go too quick. Because you make mistakes.
Pay attention. And Christoph Niederwieser also says, our fine colleague from Germany, who we just met, he says, just take more time. You cannot just stop doing what you're doing, but take more time, be prepared, read things twice,
Yes.
take your time to do things, plan more time when you have an appointment. So if something unexpected occurs, you'll be relaxed. So
Yeah.
that's the best way to deal with it.
Was an interesting event that happened during that time, talking about presenting ideas and your communication. During that time, I believe is when it was the first Republican primary debate that came up here in America, you know, where we got to see these presidential candidates come out with their ideas, right? Like you said, and how that was received. Now, how people here at least are receiving the future candidates for the election this time next year. And maybe because this came up in Mercury retrograde, maybe what we heard we shouldn't be too attached to. Maybe other things will come about, other ideas will unfold in the next week or two, maybe.
I think you nailed it. I think
Yeah,
you're right, Alie.
that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a
I don't.
Exactly.
I didn't see all the details of being over here in Germany,
right.
but I did read that there was some criticism of the debate. That the candidates in the Republican Party seemed tentative whether or not they would or would not support Donald Trump for the candidacy if he got the nomination. I think two people refused to commit themselves to supporting him, which is kind of a, you know, it's kind of a Mercury retrograde because you want to get consensus. You want everybody on the same page, but with Mercury retrograde, people probably want a little more time before they make that final decision. And we saw that with the debates and even the context of the debates, the content of it. I know one person who benefited a lot from it was Vivek Ramaswamy. You know, he got a bump up, but almost immediately afterwards, he got some flack. And I even remember in the debate itself, I read that Chris Christie had the best line of all when he alleged that Ramaswamy sounds like ChatGTP. You know, that
he has an answer to everything.
He has an answer to everything. And
funny.
we could look at his chart. I mean, I've got his chart here.
Oh, you do?
You want to look at that?
Yeah, I mean, there was an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal about him on August 24th that, you know, they said, hey, he grabbed the spotlight at the first Republican debate.
Yes,
so
he did.
yeah, I mean, this is a
grabbed this.
name I had not heard before. I don't know how much traction it's getting overseas, but this is, you know, a new young businessman who's aggressive, has an answer to everything. Sounds familiar, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, he's a Leo with the moon in Gemini, and we have his birth time, so he's 18 degrees Capricorn rising. His chart is a lot like Barack Obama's. Barack Obama was also a Leo with the moon in Gemini, and he had early Aquarius rising, I think. Vivek Ramaswamy has Capricorn, but there's a lot of similarity between these. The other thing about Ramaswamy that's interesting, his Venus falls right in that conjunction cluster in the United States, Venus, Jupiter, and Sun. And that means he is well liked. He'll give a good image. He'll be well liked by majority of people in the country if he gets a chance. They will tend to like him. So that's a positive thing. I'm not so sure he's going to make it, though, all the way through, because right now he's got Uranus squaring his Sun, Mars, and Mercury in Leo and opposing his Saturn. This is called a T-square with the Sun, Saturn involved. So he's now going to be the target of everybody else, and probably is going to be a target of Donald Trump too, unless Donald Trump wants him to be his VP and thinks he can, you know, win. But if he feels threatened, you can bet that even though Ramaswamy stood up for him, Trump is not going to stand up for Ramaswamy if the tension gets a little bit tight. And it just might, because Uranus opposed Saturn is where you feel that somebody has acted unethically. He thinks the U.S. Department of Justice has acted unethically in their, you know, attack to indict Donald Trump on so many fronts during election season. He thinks that's a terrible thing to do, and he's getting a lot of support from the Republicans for that position. But there is something else here, I think, that's going on. Maybe we haven't seen it yet, but you know, he's got to be very, very careful that who he trusts, who he works with, he might be very, very disappointed, let down by something that happens very suddenly, and he thinks is a violation of ethics and trust.
So something to keep our eye on, a person to keep our eye on.
Yes, he's one.
Someone who's well liked.
You know who
Yeah.
else? Did you have something you want to say about that?
No,
Because I
follow
think
you.
I wanted to bring up a couple other candidates because I don't want to talk about Trump so much in Biden. I mean, if they run, I've already said this over and over again in the Free Weekly column that Trump has Jupiter on his sun during the election. So
What does
like
that
it or
mean?
not, he's got a lot of support on the day of the election. Biden has Pluto square moon. That's his major aspect going on around the election. That's family problems. That's the legal issues. I mean, Trump's got a boatload of legal issues, but he's popular. Biden has a boatload of legal issues coming up. They've already just begun with his family. And this is like exposing, and this could be a problem for him. He's got to, I'm sure he's trying to manage it. We'll see how successful he is. So if it's head and head between the two of them on election day, and you're looking just at astrology, it's pretty hard to bet against Trump as much as you might want to. He's got Jupiter.
Yeah.
Biden's got Pluto,
Yeah.
but it may not get that far. I'm not so sure either of these two candidates are going to make it through the primaries. I like the looks of Nikki Haley and Robert Kennedy Jr. too. Both of them are born in late Capricorn, so Pluto is on the sun of each of them. Not only that, but Robert Kennedy has his moon conjunct the United States sun, Venus, and Jupiter, especially the sun. Again, the country loves this man. If he gets a chance, he gets support from the country. The fact that they both got Pluto on the sun indicates they're either in a period where they're going to be disempowered or heavily empowered. Jimmy Carter won the election in 1976 when Pluto was on his sun. Nobody had heard of him. Very few people. He wasn't a household name, but he came out of nowhere and suddenly got empowered. And on the heels of Richard Nixon's resignation, they put him in the White House, and he became a man of power. Not that he did that great economically or even domestically, but you got to look back at what he did. He did some good things, and he's doing some good things since he left the White House. So I'm thinking that Robert Kennedy and Nikki Haley, regardless of what happens, they're going to do good things. They're going to get empowered by this process. They're going to do good things to the country. And I think it'd be very interesting if somehow they got together. This is a conspiracy theory, I know, but people talked about who like to have a mixed ticket. That would be my mixed ticket.
Interesting. As you're talking about conspiracy, Robert Kennedy has Sun square Neptune. So he's easy to project dreams and conspiracies on. I mean, he's like we call it a projection field, somebody who he attracts projection, right? And also he has this very strong Chiron. And strong Chiron, I noticed, is strong in people who are activists and conspiracy people.
Well, he got his reputation by being against the vaccination program early on, and it turns he was right. But he got branded as a kook, as a nut for taking that position as a conspiracy theory. And he's out there, on the campaign trail trying to make the record straight for what he stood for versus what they're accusing him of standing for.
And it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for him with that Sun square Neptune to keep it straight of, what he said, what he didn't say. People are going to believe what they want in case of him, I believe. And that Chiron thing is so typical. I would say almost everybody who has that kind of a strong Chiron was against vaccination.
Yeah.
Everybody I saw, at least. These are alternative healers, really. These people, they believe in, alternative healing.
He's a lawyer, but his law has to do with medical. His law interest has to do with medical malpractice.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So speaking of vaccines and what happened there, I did see another headline, which I do not like. The journal says COVID this fall. What's the same, what's different, and what's to know? I feel like it's creeping back into the news again. We're hearing again about the pandemic. Here we are years later, and we're still hearing about this. What are we gonna hear about a pandemic forever? Is there a new pandemic? Is it the same pandemic? Is this
is it worse? Is it easier?
Is it good? Is it bad? Is it?
Yeah.
What's
Have a
going
thought
on?
on that?
Why is it coming up?
Well, we don't have the same devastating aspects than we had in the last couple of years.
Yeah,
At the
even
end of the
last
year.
year, even
Last
end of
year
last year was a
really
bad one. That was a
a
difficult
really
aspect.
bad one.
We don't have that this year.
2022
We have
was?
that this year. No, not this year. So that we're
No.
kind of hoping, and by astrology, we're thinking it might be milder
Yeah,
than everybody thinks right now. I
Mm.
mean, would
that's
that be
my
good?
that's my thought. I
Yeah.
don't see this pandemic type of hysteria that we had in 2020, even at the end of 2022. It was
Mhm.
it was coming back again.
Yeah.
I don't see that again till maybe the end of 2024.
Then we have another one.
And we got
coming up,
another
yeah.
Mars,
Yeah.
Neptune. Mars goes retrograde, Neptune goes direct in early December. But I tend to think it's not as critical and as dangerous, astrologically speaking, as we've seen between 2020 and 2022.
Now, why would we think that has anything to do with an illness of a pandemic versus some other threat? You know, like what's happening right now, just thinking as you're talking, I feel like in Arizona, our biggest threat is this heat, this excessive heat. How do you know when you see signs like that happening that it's dealing with something like a virus versus something else threatening like the climate or a
Ah,
war or something?
Because
How
of
do you
Neptune.
know?
Because of Neptune. When Neptune's involved, when Neptune's highlighted.
mhm.
We do have a Jupiter semi-square Neptune. I forgot about that. We got that somewhere in early to middle November. It's a semi-square though. It's a semi-square. It's not as strong. It's not as strong as a conjunction, square, opposition, but it's a semi-square. So there is going to be a little bit of hysteria.
Mhm.
But also with Jupiter Neptune, there's also a lot of misinformation,
Yeah,
a lot of promotion of false ideas,
Right.
conspiracies, if
people
you
are
will.
going to try to make money on this idea. So they like when people are having fears, they can make a lot of money by telling them how they
Yeah.
can help them and stuff.
Is greed inflation.
Yeah.
Okay, people are going to inflate the price by inflating the fear,
Mhm.
but I don't think there's going to be as deadly or as difficult as it was the last 2 years. That's my opinion. There'd be thoughts about it. There'd be of course a promotion to try to get people to get vaccinated again with the new virus. I don't think many people are going to do it. I think far fewer people are going to fall for it this time than they did last time. But I would say as you get to the end of 2024, if we see these kinds of illnesses starting to invade our societies, the world, we probably should take that on more serious at that time.
Do you
Mhm.
think it's going to happen towards the end of 2024, kind of like what we saw towards that time of 2020, where there's an election and this is now a
No, not. I don't
thing.
think so. I don't think it's going to affect the election. I don't think it's as bad as 2020. I think it's more like late 2022.
Okay.
You know,
Mhm.
that was a concern that the cases of COVID and this new branch of COVID was increasing in late 2022. I think it's like that in late 2024. There was fear, there was hysteria, a certain level of hysteria, but nothing like we had in March, April, May even of 2020. I don't think we're going to see anything quite like that again in our lifetime.
Okay. Well,
The closest we're going to come would be probably between late 2024 and early 2026. There's a period there that's like a secondary pandemic, but it's
Is that
not
Saturn conjunct
Saturn
Neptune?
conjunct
Yeah.
Neptune, Saturn and Neptune going into Aries.
Mhm.
But and then you get a Mars, Neptune changing directions. But I mean, in 2020, you had the Capricorn,
Yeah.
all those planets ganging up in Capricorn, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto. That was horrific.
That was horrific. Yeah.
And it affected the economy, affected the fear in the world was extremely high. I don't see it going that panicky, that
Mhm.
much hysteria again.
Yeah, and that much suppressive that the
Well,
government would lock in their people. Like
That's true.
that's Capricorn. Capricorn is we got to do measures and keep the people in and lock them away.
Can't let them travel,
Yeah,
can't let them
yeah, no.
communicate, can't let them socialize.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not going to go back that far.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
No.
So hopefully we can be done with the pandemic part of
Mhm.
our lifetimes.
Yeah, and
It's-
actually up until then, up until the fall of 2024, I mean, there's some volatility, but I think the general mood of the country, not even the country, really the world, is improving. I think there
Okay.
is more world trade, more treaties, more agreements going on between nations. That part is good. Yeah, we are concerned about inflation coming back, and unfortunately, I don't think it's totally over, but I don't think the Federal Reserve is going to raise interest rates. I don't think they're going to raise them again. If they do, it's mild. I think the major part of the interest rate increase is over, but I don't see them decreasing it either. I think they want to see how things are going to work out for a year. Well, at least till the spring.
So we have a
So
bit
I
of
think we have
time.
a better period coming up here.
Well, that's optimistic. Anything else that you'd like to add? I like ending on an optimistic note. Is there any other optimistic news we can share before
Well, I have an optimistic note. That is, I think the holiday seasons this year be the best holiday seasons we've had in a long time, both in terms of sales and mood of the collective throughout the world. I think we have a happy holiday season coming up between Thanksgiving and New Year.
I think you just talked yourself into another topic for our next episode. As we
Right.
Yeah.
Very good, Alie.
All right. Anything else, Antonia, you have of optimism to share?
I would, in this regard, I would follow. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what did I write in my annual book for my German? I wrote something like that. That the holiday season is going to be. There's going to be a kind of a peace, a kind of, we want to be in peace. We want to be with our loved ones. That's
right.
It's going to be a very strong sense of family wanting to be together.
Well, there's a
Yeah.
lot of Sagittarius, there's a lot of Jupiter going direct and Jupiter trine the sun. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of partying, a lot of celebrating. However, on January 1st, Venus does square Saturn, so there's a hangover, but it's
Yeah.
worth it. You had
Yeah.
such a good holiday season. You deserve to have a day where you
The
have to
hangover.
rest. So yeah. Well, thank you, Alie.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
thank you
having
very
us.
much for having us. Yeah.
insights for sharing
That's
your
great
thoughts
fun.
about a few topics on my mind. And next episode, let's talk about the holiday cheer.
Okay, Alie.
Okay.
Very good.
All right.
Take care. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.